Welcome back, guys, gals, and non-binary pals, to another reading of Quirk, Class Thaumiel. I recently got some new recording equipment, new mic, and I'm recording on a different device, so the audio quality and noise might sound a little bit different, but it should sound like this from here on out. Today I'll be reading Chapter 9, Talk About the Struggles of Artists. There is a trigger warning in this chapter for drowning. Here's the summary. A painting's lore is explained. Deep in the vaults of the SCP Foundation was a painting. This painting was covered by a large cloth and locked in a storage container. The painting appeared to be made from the perspective of a character underwater. It was mesmerizing, the way the rays of light from the surface seemed to reach through the frame. The painting's blue, calming veneer was merely a facade, however. Not even the Foundation knew the secrets held in those strokes of oil paint. Stefan Yearling was an artist. They all were, really. All 5 of them. The 5 artists in question were students at Redacted University. None of them possessed much talent, but each was gifted in their own right. Their brushstrokes may not have been the most elegant, but each of them deeply understood the heart that went into making art. The soul. They met at an art convention. Stefan was selling sketches. The other 4 were quick to gather around, offering encouragement and praise. Soon the talk shifted to each of the artists' love for their craft. They all hit it off instantly. The 5 worked together for months afterwards. They shared a space in the dorm studios, a wonderland of hanging white tarps covered in a myriad of splattered colors, and paintings of every subject imaginable, from mountaintops to eggs on toast. A large, empty canvas sat front and center. Stefan planned to use the space for his greatest work yet, his magnum opus. Stuck on the subject for weeks, Stefan sketched idea upon idea and threw out each and every one. He needed his masterpiece to be alive, to feel like you could breathe in the scene, or suffocate inside. So when an opportunity arose for a group of 5 students to visit the country of Redacted, he leapt the opportunity. If inspiration was Stefan's goal, then this trip might be the road to bring him there. His 4 friends agreed enthusiastically. The trip to Redacted was uneventful, a long plane ride across the ocean. Still, Stefan felt a nervousness like he had never felt while in the air. Would he find the answers he sought? Or would he be left grasping at straws? Thankfully, he had his friends to comfort him. Living in Redacted was a wonderful experience, truly all sunshine and daisies, until it wasn't. But that's always how these things go, isn't it? Peaceful times come and go like the shifting of the ocean waves. "Grab on tight!" a voice screamed through the howling winds. As time went on in his temporary new home, Stefan noticed changes, upheavals. First it was the police. More officers seemed to surge into the quaint town every day. Then it was the gossip. Rumors spread like wildfire of political upheaval and instability. Still, Stefan focused on the peaceful life he now led. It's just politics, he thought to himself. All will pass. An orange figure was tossed in the waves. The life-saving device held the body above, but it simply wasn't enough to stop the relentless sea. The government was overthrown. Guns fired in the streets. As chanting and screaming could be heard outside, a certain dark room occupied by a group of students was consumed with a quiet resolve to escape. "Stephen! Where's Stephen?" a frantic voice called. The wind was its only answer. The 4 students ran to the beach. Their entire life savings were caught up in this opportunity for freedom. They expected to see a boat, but were met only by a dingy raft. Gunfire sounded behind them. The group looked each other in the eyes and made their silent decision to get aboard anyways. 3 blots of orange stained the dark, calm sea. The raft drifted across the sea. There were only 3 life vests aboard, and Stephen drew the short straw. "We're all in this together," one student declared, paddling a little faster, with a little more urgency. Dark clouds were on the horizon. The storm came out of nowhere. One second the air was clear, and the next the wind began to blow. Thick, heavy raindrops tore through the air. The 4 huddled together, lightning as their only means to see in the oppressive darkness. The waves tossed the raft to and fro, until all of a sudden the raft split. The four were dumped into an unforgivingly rough sea. The three held afloat by vests thought themselves lucky, but Stephen and the other suffered the least among them. The vests held their victims above the water, waves crashing into their faces as they dipped under the wake again and again. Their drowning was a slow and painful one. But Stephen sunk down. Further and further he sank, until all visible light had disappeared, and the only feeling remaining was cold. As if by miracle, rays of sunshine seemed to shine down on Stephen. They glittered and danced through the waves, casting beautiful reflections down of the sky above. Beautiful, the student, the sun, the artist thought, as he breathed his last. When Stephen Yearling's belongings were collected, a total of 1,392 works were found. These works ranged from simple sketches to vast sculptures. Among them, front and center, was a simple painting. This painting was the most alluring and lifelike of all, depicting only blue. The back of the painting was signed with 5 names, and among them was one in bold. Stephen Yearling. Drown them, the painting seemed to whisper. Drown them all. Show them that wonderful light. My masterpiece. And that's the end of this chapter. I'll be continuing right on to chapter 10. Katsuki choking is a canon event. There's also trigger warnings in this chapter for some violence and more choking or drowning. Here's the summary. Katsuki versus the sludge villain, minus the sludge villain. Katsuki couldn't breathe, and Izuku was responsible somehow. Ever since he left school and started walking home, Katsuki kept coughing. The itchy feeling in his lungs grew wet, and the boy began to feel dizzy as he stumbled down the road home. Katsuki collapsed in the middle of a crowded street. The throngs of feet didn't stop to help. They only parted way for the boy as he coughed harder, desperately clutching his chest and heaving bile. I'm sure a hero will help him, they whispered as they turned their eyes away. Help! Katsuki tried to scream, but he couldn't form the words, whether because of his lungs' self-destruction or his inability to ever ask for help. Even Katsuki himself didn't know. So instead, he began to fire off explosions. The hospital was too far to make it on foot, and he wouldn't be able to call an ambulance in his state. If no heroes would notice him, Katsuki just had to make them notice. Katsuki spit up another mouthful of seawater as the wooden sign for a nearby cafe went up in flames. The crowd around Katsuki screamed and began to stampede away. Halt, villain! A muscular hero with a strange caution tape-covered wrist guards announced. Finally, someone who could help. The hero bounded towards the cause of the flames and threw a punch into the kneeling boy's ribs. Katsuki went flying into a brick wall. Sparks flew. The wall was seared with ash, an imprint the size of a teenager. Another hero appeared. This one had a face made of wood. He sent out long, branching limbs to ensnare the hapless victim. Stop resisting arrest and come quietly, the hero said. Crackling fireworks rippled their way across Katsuki's skin in response. His face was covered in vegetation. A trickle of seawater slipped through the thicket. He's resisting arrest! Just knock him out, the first hero declared. The muscular hero approached the boy. Hey kid, stay back, it isn't safe, a police officer guarding the police line yelled. Katsuki may not have been able to see, but the voice he heard was one he could never forget. It consumed his mind every night, the narrator of his nightmares. Stephen, cut it out! Izuku yelled as he began tearing the brambles from his friend's face. You're interfering with an arrest, kid, the hero Death Arms admonished as he pulled Izuku off Katsuki. When Izuku turned to the angry heroes, Katsuki froze in terror. The boy hailed as a walking ray of sunshine was dripping such a menacing aura and scowling at the heroes with such an intensity that all time seemed to stop. Nobody could move, every bystander frozen in terror at the small child's rage. Arrest? Arrest? The boy demanded, breaking the silence. He's drowning, for God's sake! He's destroying the street, Kamui Woods managed, Still, his grip on Katsuki loosened slightly. "Call an ambulance," Izuku said, suddenly calm, yet no less dangerous seeming. "Now." "How about we take him down to the police station first, then see about the ambulance?" Death Arms suggested. Izuku turned back to the hero once more, furious, but Katsuki never heard his response, as he collapsed with a final trickle of water from his lips. Whatever the other boy said in his defense must have worked, however, because the sound of sirens could be heard through the unconscious haze Katsuki now waded through. He awoke at a hospital. He instinctively began to cough, but this time no liquid was to be found. Opening his eyes, he saw Izuku at the foot of his bed. The smaller boy smiled, seeing his friend wake from his comatose state. "Get away from me, you monster!" Izuku's smile vanished. Katsuki curled up in his cot and covered his face with his sheets. He clutched his hands against himself with such vigor that his temples began to turn an angry red. The image of that dark, too long figure, and the feeling of coughing up a never-ending supply of salty water invaded his senses in the darkness. "I just want you to leave me alone." Minutes later, a nurse checking on the sleeping patient found Katsuki huddled under his sheets, sobbing to himself. Besides him, the room was empty. And that's the end of Chapter 10. I really hope you enjoyed it. Since I'm trying out this new audio system, please comment below if there's any problems that you noticed or background noise that I can filter out. I'm still trying to learn this program, so I'll probably make mistakes for a bit before I can manage to get more used to it. Anyways, I really hope you enjoyed this chapter. I'll be recording chapters 11 and 12 soon enough. Thank you all so much for listening. Patch out.